Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for making the drive on a snowy afternoon. We welcome you all on behalf of the Accelerator Center. Welcome to the first She Talks Tech event of 2024. Starting off, wishing you New Year greetings. I hope you all have had a great start to the year. Today, we are here to celebrate women in tech. This is one of a kind series events where we talk all about groundbreaking activities, technologies, projects, and amazing interactions and networking opportunity for incredible women in this room. Thank you so much, everyone who made it here. We also do have a group of people joining us virtually. So we want to say hi to our virtual friends and making sure that we are going to be tracking questions along the way. So please do put in your questions in the chat. Starting off, we do have a robust agenda lined up today. We are having a panel discussion here, right, as you can see. Our incredible panel is going to be talking about disruptive tech, women-led projects, where they're going to be really sharing their challenges, triumphs, journeys, and how they converted their passion into projects and really their day jobs. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's event sponsor, BMO, which is, I want to introduce Jacqueline Hewson, who is the Vice President and Market Leader of Private Wealth in the Waterloo region, to share a few words. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the warm welcome. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be here this evening on behalf of BMO and representing BMO Private Wealth. And, at BMO, for those of you that may hear about us in the news or bank with us, our purpose is to boldly grow the good. And one of the ways we do that is our support of women's initiatives in our local communities across the country and across the globe. And so, really important and pleased that we could sponsor this event this evening. We have a number of programs and initiatives dedicated to women in terms of education, in terms of empowerment, in terms of events, and getting out into the communities. We're really focused on removing barriers to women's empowerment and championing change for each woman. And it's not just about, here's an opportunity, but it's feeling like you can take that opportunity and run with it. Feeling proud about what you're doing and having the courage to do it. So there are a number of initiatives always underway for women at BMO. You can see those at bmoforwomen.com. We have podcast series, we have a grant program, and I'm going to share an example of that with you. And we do have a Wealth Insights as well as Bold and Black interview series and Money Making Change series. So I do invite you to take a look at that. In 2022, in March, we earmarked $5 billion in capital over the next 5 years to support the growth of women-owned businesses in Canada. And so one of the stories I want to share with you, one of our grant recipients, and you may be familiar with their story, Ariel Locke and Sang Lee. They were creators of Pico Produce in British Columbia. And so what PECO is an online grocery marketplace that delivers peculiar or surplus groceries at up to 40% off retail prices. Now, you might ask, what's a peculiar grocery? They are on a mission to fight food waste and promote access to affordable, healthy food. It was started as a passion project by Sang Lee and Ariel Locke to reduce food waste. The company has now grown to become a thriving business, rescuing over 200,000 pounds of produce and pantry goods, saving Canadians over $750,000 on their grocery bills. They currently service all of Metro Vancouver and are looking to expand to other provinces. By receiving the grant from BMO Celebrating Women, they feel that they now have the opportunity to experiment and expand and ultimately scale their business to the next level. So I do encourage women entrepreneurs here to check out our Women's Grants program. It is my pleasure this evening to introduce your panel host, Joanna Ma. Joanna is an intellectual property strategist and patent lawyer at Bearskin & Partners, LLP. She offers her clients strategic advice on developing and growing IP portfolios that are aligned with their business opportunities and goals. Joanna also assists her clients with commercializing and monetizing these IP rights, and is developing a balanced approach to the enforcement of their IP rights. Joanna has an electrical engineering background and specializes in patenting software-driven technologies and associated systems in various technologies. I was talking to Joanna before, and I said, I go out to these events and I see other women, and I'm always humbled. And so it's share, take the time to network with each other, take the time to really understand what each other does and where you can connect with people. So I'm going to turn it over to Joanna. Welcome to all of you here. For the women in the room and the men, be bold, be strong, feel empowered. You got this. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for making your way out here in the cold. The topic today is disrupting tech. Innovative women-led projects. So we have a Q&A session booked for the end of the session. Be sure to think of those, and we'll make time to try to address as many as possible. And I'm sure the panelists will be here afterwards to discuss with you personally as well, too. So I'm very honored to be moderating this conversation with some really amazing women we have on the panel today. Anytime I have the opportunity to talk about how technology can lead innovation and disrupt the status quo, I'm very excited about that. Nothing else about myself. I'm going to introduce each panelist, and they're going to give a little bit of background as to how they arrived at their current state, and we'll go from there. Today, I have the honor of introducing Juanita Lee Garcia, who's the Executive Director of Upside Foundation, as well as Pat Chai-Sang, founder and CEO of Is Empower, as well as Vartika Manasvi, a Senior Advisor in Mars in Toronto. So, Juanita, did you want to start us off with a quick intro?
Sure. I think this works because I just saw her use it. Thanks, Joanna. So nice to be here, and thank you to the team at Accelerator Center for having us. My name is Juanita Lee Garcia. My pronouns are she, her, and I landed. It's also, I see some familiar faces, which is so nice. And also, thank you to all the men and men-identified folks who show up to listen to women in tech. I think that's very important to show your allyship and learn about what women in this space go through. I started my journey in tech left field. I went to school for fine arts. I have an MFA and worked in retail to put myself through school, and just landed at a tech job in Toronto because I had sales experience. And it was great. It was a bootstrapped company. I was employee number 23, like very early stages, and then immediately went into shell shock of like how incredibly brewery the Toronto mid-2010s tech community was, and saw huge gaps in our own organization. There was no women in leadership past management roles, only women in leadership were in marketing roles. And I had the idea to do a culture audit for our founders, and they said, I don't know what that is, but go for it. And so I did one, and it was the first time that I had thought about measuring a gender wage gap. We were hiring women with MBAs out of school with 40K salaries, and then product managers that were going to engineering with 160K salaries. And so saw this huge gap, and then didn't want to be a part of it, but came across an organization in the nonprofit space. So a lot of my experience and projects related to the innovation sector come from working in the innovation economy, running the partnerships, marketing, and strategic projects team at Venture for Canada, which is a student work integrated learning organization that provides entrepreneurial skills development, and now at Upside, which is an organization that holds equity in over 380 Canadian startups at the capital table, allowing founders to build in social impact and step into social impact with a financial commitment to a charity at the end of their tenure. But really working with the tech community and specifically tech founders to help them think about how they can be more disruptive in our social economy.
This is not okay. This is working now. All right. So I'm Pat. I'm the founder and CEO of Isempower. We are an edtech solution that helps international students in Canada become successful. So we provide software into post-secondary institutions to help them support international students in terms of job opportunity, providing them with resources, community, and mentorship. Just out of curiosity, just raise your hand if you are women entrepreneurs. Okay, handful in the room. Raise your hand if you are women and figuring out and maybe considering entrepreneurship. Okay, great. That's also a handful. So just a bit about my story. I call myself a bit of an accidental founder. So I didn't personally, didn't really think of starting a business. I grew up in I grew up in Thailand in a local political family, and saw a lot of good charity work being done, but not tons of financial returns. So I went to school for social impact, creating social enterprise, and always had a good heart of helping out friends. And one of the things that I started doing back about 3 years ago was helping my friends write resumes. So raise your hand if you ever heard of a platform called meetup.com. Yeah, great. So I was one of that person, and I wanted to host meetup groups. So I hosted meetup groups in my own apartment, wanted to write resumes for friends, and that community grew. It's just now becoming like 100 of international students to thousands and now tens of thousands. Essentially just wanted to help someone that I was experiencing challenges myself. I was trying to find even just a minimum wage job here in Canada, and I couldn't really get a dishwashing job at a Thai restaurant because I didn't have a resume. So I saw a huge gap in the post-secondary education sector where they rely so much on international students as the number one source of revenue, but not a ton of support, and many students ended up working minimum wage jobs. So I started the company to help fill that gap, and professionally I come from a product management background and very much supported by amazing team who's actually here today. And I asked them to raise their hand. They were the one who really helped build the technology behind Isempower. Anyway, thank you so much for having me here.
Great. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Vartika, and thanks Joanna, thanks to Accelerator Center for having us here, and thanks to all of you for showing up in this weather. So my story, I'm originally from a small town in India, up north, close to Delhi. I got into tech at the age of 19 out of curiosity, and I was, while I was doing my MBA, building stuff on the side and trying to do things on the internet, just to keep myself busy, and so that I'm not in the traditional, cycle of my mom trying to teach me how to cook. So that was me many years ago. And I got my first job in marketing, and I left that job because all marketers are liars, I figured. And then I got into product management, and I was building products for other companies. And that's when my first startup happened almost 10 years ago, when I thought, hey, when I can build products for other companies, I might as well just go build my own product and do my own company. So like Pat, I'm not an accidental entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I do not survive jobs. And so that's how I started my first company. I came to Canada around 5 years ago on a startup visa to do my second company. I sold that company in 2021. Moved to Toronto, and now I'm an advisor. I am trying not to start another company for some time and just give back and work with other entrepreneurs and help them with not make the same mistakes that I made, go make new mistakes. So I'm with Mars and Community Tech. I'm a growth coach and an advisor, and great to see some familiar faces here. And that's me. Thanks again.
Thank you, everyone. So I guess my first question, I work in the tech space, so I meet many amazing tech-driven individuals like yourselves. So my immediate question always is, how were you able to take that first leap and enter this space where there's so much unknown? Like, what drives and inspires you to enter the space and work something out and develop your own thing? Like, how did you get there, and what drove you? And can you discuss like some stories or like one moment you really helped you make that leap and enter that space? Maybe for Tika, we can start and go backwards.
Yeah, sure. I've built 7 products, so those epiphanies, if you will, that happens a lot. And the moment usually is, when I need something for myself, I'm like, why does this not exist in the world? And somebody has to do it. And so I go, try to, in a scrappy way, put things together and build something and talk to a few people and try to validate, is this something that I need, or is this a genuine problem, and try to validate that problem. So the inspiration, I can give you the inspiration back in the day when I started my first company called imeu. That was a social networking platform to connect strangers at coffee shops, at co-working locations where you don't know people and you want to network on a common need or a common problem statement. So I used to work out of spaces. I changed, I remember I moved to different cities, I changed a lot of schools. And so every time I had this need in my own life that I need to know someone, but how do I even go start a conversation? How do I know, how do I make more friends? So I was always looking for, that icebreaker kind of a moment. And when I was in that whole thing of building my first product, I wanted to build a platform to create those icebreakers. My mobile phone is running out of battery. Who has an Apple charger? And if there is an app to do that, can we do it? So that was where that first inspiration came from. I've built many products, like I said. My second company was literally, why do people hire looking at resumes, and why does job boards exist? So I went on to building platform where there is no need of having a resume or a job board, and hiring can be based on how you think and what your skills are, not how many keywords you have on your resume. So there has been many moments in my life and inspiration, so always looking for a problem and to solve, yeah.
And offering solutions too.
And making money.
That's important as well. Pat?
Yeah, for me is really around like the market demand, right? Like first of all is understanding the problem, like what exactly are we solving here? And who's paying for that solution? And is there a demand? I remember this one moment when it was not a business, like when I was running a meetup group and it was not a business, but I was running my meetup group at a bubble tea shop. And this one person came in to get his resumes revamped. He was slightly a little older, and he's from Brazil. He was a CTO of a tech company in Brazil, and he came to me and he's like, I have no idea how to find a job in a new country. He showed me his resumes, looks great, and I asked him like, what kind of job are you looking for right now? And he said, I'm just applying for like a junior software development job, anything that just get me by. And I checked up on him, and I asked him how it's going and everything. And it's really broke my heart when he said he was driving an Uber at that time. So he's honestly, he couldn't get a job. And it's really representing the true story of so many immigrants that are coming here and not being able to find job. The same story continue. I have so many other people who came to my meetup group and say, hey, why are you doing this for free? Like, I will pay you, $200 to get my resumes done. People ask, like, can you do a mentorship program? Can you do a job search training program? And the demand in itself really came into the market. And then from there, I was still working a day job, and I didn't have the gut to quit it to pursue it as a, founder. So I had to write out the whole business model of how exactly am I going to bring this product to the market, who's actually going to pay for it, because charging the job seekers also not always fair. So can I charge employers and can I charge schools, and what makes the most sense in terms of recurring revenue? But just to kind of get started, I was working a day job for many years and then was doing this as a side for about 2 years. And I always had a thought in my mind of like, oh, I really want to quit this job. Like, I really want to do this full time. I was getting to the point where I was not good at both things. I was not good in my day job and I was not good in my entrepreneurship journey. So I left my full-time job back in April 2022, moved to Toronto, and guess what? I didn't pay myself for the whole year. That was poor planning, but it's the leap of faith that you have to take with better planning than what I had, and figure out and build a great team and go from there.
I would just like to say that Vartika was also the first woman to get the startup visa and welcomed into the country as from that program, which is huge. Obviously, Pat immigrated to Canada as an international student and like addressed this problem firsthand. I also immigrated to Canada, so I was like, oh, we have a full panel of migrants or newcomers. But I was here, in my last year of high school, and one of the things that I've really thought about recently is how the tech sector. When we're talking tech, we're not talking about an IT job at a bank. That's also tech. Like if you have an IT job at a bank and you're working in tech, you're working with technology, but you're not necessarily working in the banking sector. It's really when we talk about the tech sector, which is this. It's the startup, incubator, accelerator, regional incubation hubs, and it has a language. And in order to get into that sector, you have to speak that language. And I had a lot of privilege of going to doing my undergraduate with friends who had parents who had worked in the sector, going to grad school and having a boyfriend at the time whose dad was the president of a company that was able to share that language. And so I think one of the things that we did at Venture for Canada was really try and think about how we could equip people with the right language to be able to break into the sector. So if you're looking for a job in tech, or if you're an employee in tech and looking to advance within that, it's to really try to understand what is the shared language. And it's often quite unfair, right? When we talk about things like pipeline or ROI or, what's your digital marketing. I mean, I'm like, I don't even, there's so many terms actually. My friend Laura just launched something called What in the Tech. And it's a resource that takes acronyms and words that are used in tech to give people that vocabulary, because that's often all it is. Often it's just not having the language. And so one of the things that we identified at Venture for Canada was that recent grads from across Canada who had really invested in their post-secondary education, who wanted to work for a small, medium-sized startup, who wanted to work for a founder so that they could learn from them, but they didn't have the right vocabulary in the interviews. And so creating those open resources was something that we led to be able to kind of open those doors. For me in particular, I was really interested in just the money in tech. Tech has this incredible opportunity to provide women with financial autonomy that you can't get in many other sectors in Canada. It has a lot less, bureaucracy. It has a lot less levels that you have to jump through in order to potentially reach some type of financial freedom, whether it's through equity, whether it's through options. And I was just really interested at the time in being how do I get out of this cycle of having to, contribute to something but not be an owner of it, knowing that I'm not very good at being an entrepreneur. I don't have that type of financial risk threshold. And so that was it. And it was really understanding how to speak that language of negotiation to get options, to get the right equity packages, to be able to have vesting packages that made sense for me, because being a woman in tech has great advantages, both from how you are able to work, what you're able to do, and the type of money that you're able to make.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that leads to a really interesting perspective as well that women bring to tech innovative projects. I went to school at University of Waterloo many years ago, and oftentimes the first question a lot of people ask me is, how was your experience being, the minority within your class as a woman? And it really makes me step back and think, like, I didn't feel different, until you brought it up. And so oftentimes people focus on the challenges, the difficulties of being a woman in your space. But I think we should change that perspective. Let's instead talk about what was different. What was the different perspective that you brought to these projects as being a woman? What positives were you able to engage because you were a woman? And maybe we can start with Juanita as well.
I mean, once you get past like the microaggressions, then you're you got to get past the challenges, right? And I think that as much as we could talk about all the challenges that women face, and they're going to face it not only in the tech sector, but we continue to know that women face challenges across so many other sectors. I think once I was able to accept that and say, okay, well, this is going to happen anyway, so I'm just gonna do it the way I want to do it, and I think I was able to move beyond that. Not everyone has the privilege to do that, right? Not everyone has the privilege to go across those spaces. Like, if your job is at risk, like if you have managers who don't support you, I think something that's really personal. But I just had a huge supporter in the person who was responsible for my career. So my direct manager, who was the CEO of our organization, and one of the things that the two of us often talk about was and I said this to my friend earlier, was you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And so in tech environments, I was really aware of that. And in the innovation, in our innovation sector, I'm really aware of that. If I'm talking to people that are toxic and, men that are never going to respond well to women's challenges, then you're never going to get past that. But how can you find the right people that can champion you in your career and can champion you in those projects and those roles? That was, I think, the number one thing, was finding a place where you can thrive. And there's so many of those places. One of the things that we really believe in at Upside is that women, 33% of our members are women who have pledged their Upside, which is incredible based on the ratio of women-led companies in Canada. And we know that women contribute back to their communities, right? We know that women in leadership invest in mentorship, invest in growing their teams. And so for anyone who's looking for a job in tech, and I worked for an incredible founder who is part of the LGBTQ community, and he was just always very aware of the challenges, was actually finding the right space, right? It's a job interview or a tech company, it goes both ways. And it was really just saying no to different environments. That's the best kind of thing I was able to do, was say, I'm going to remove myself from this environment and put myself in one that's supportive, because you have to be able to thrive, and you have to have the surrounding supports to do that. And if you keep coming across barriers, you're not going to get there. And so how can you find the right leadership and look for that in your founders, your funders as well? Because they're going to be the people you surround yourself with every day.
I think that's really important too as well. You taking charge of your career and making a statement and establishing what's important to you and developing that practice or developing your space accordingly. Vartika and Pat, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. So, when I started in tech, I didn't realize that being a woman makes it different. My parents never made any partial treatment in how me and my brother grew up. We went to all the best schools, got the greatest of the education. So it was more of the outside environment of the world that made me realize later on that, oh, you are, you're different, you're a woman in tech, and things are going to be different for you. And for the longest time, I remember I didn't used to show up at women conferences. People used to invite me. I'm like, you guys are biased. You don't know what you're doing. So I didn't used to just go there. But later on, I realized that is not really in your control. People will still keep doing what they have to do. You have to really focus your energy on what is at the table, what is it that you can do, instead of even spending time thinking about those challenges. And so, I completely reversed engineer that whole mindset. It's a good thing that I'm different. At least I'm able to get the attention, and that's what matters, getting attention of people. So if I'm different, if that's getting me attention, it better work for me, my company. So I reversed that whole thing, and I used my own gender, my immigrant status, and all these labels to literally work for me.
That's amazing, Pratika. That should be your new branding. Pat, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll keep this kind of short, but I really think, as a woman founders and entrepreneurs, you have this motherly nature in you where a lot of the time, if you look at female founders and entrepreneurs, they often start a business that come from the place of, I have experienced this problem myself, I've seen, I have witnessed this, and I want to start something that they truly believe in. And I think that sparks something extremely, inspiring. Is you are not just getting into the business because, hey, I want to chase after this, billion-dollar industry and make money out of it, but you're actually doing something that truly matters, and it has a longevity to it too. I grew up in a country where my parents always say, if you're a woman, you have to be the person that cook in the kitchen, and you have to keep your head down and just be polite and be nice. So for so long, as a female entrepreneur myself, I have tried to get all of that, but it was extremely hard. I somehow had to train myself to speak like a man, is maybe just to stand up taller or speak louder than I need to do, just so that I could, not fall into my own nature of just being shy and all these things. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Being a mom myself, I do think of things a little differently nowadays. But recently, my students at my firm called me the mom of students because I really look after them and think and take care of them and potentially mother them too much. So I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an insult. But moving on to, I think what I think is very important throughout my career that got me to here, to this spot, as well as now giving back, is mentorship. I think mentorship is key in every single role you are in, whether it be in tech or other careers, whether you are an advisor, there are mentors for you, and you mentor back as well too. So I'm curious about your history. How has mentorship helped you get to this point? Was there like a defining moment through your mentorship from someone else that really helped frame where you are now? And on the other side of things, when others are trying to engage you as a mentor, what should they be asking, or how should they approach you? I guess thinking back to when you were trying to get mentors as well too, what advice do you have for the future entrepreneurs trying to get to where you are? Maybe we'll start with Pat.
I think being out there and putting yourself out there and seeing someone who look like you or who have walked your journey and being able to look up to them and be like, if she can do it, and I can do that too. It's so powerful. Being a founder is extremely lonely. It's you think you have all these unique challenges and you don't want to share with other people because maybe other people don't truly understand what you're going through. But I think being at the place of being vulnerable is actually a place of strength. And sometimes just being okay to say like, I have no idea how to do this, or like, I'm terrible at this. Can you please tell me? Rather than just trying to pretend that you know everything. And I think if I were to give feedback to someone who are starting out, is just like really just to do it. It's just to start something small and just do, because at the end of the day you will make mistake anyways, and it's just about getting start and learn along the way.
Yeah, very well said. To add to that, I believe magic happens when you least expect it. And so you have to put yourself out there to engineer serendipity. You do not know who you will meet, where, and when, and what that meeting that one person could convert into. I literally sold a company to a woman well-respected woman who I met at a conference very randomly, and I said, "This is what I'm building," and we started talking. We spoke for a year before she decided to buy us out. The whole point is putting yourself out there, not in the hope of finding a mentor or an advisor, but just being yourself, being the most authentic version of yourself, and talking about what you're working on, what makes you tick, and connect people on a genuine level. And that takes you very far in life. All my great connections, I still, now, I still have people who I lean on to when I need advice, when I need help. So you need to surround yourself and have a circle of mentors or advisors. Sometimes these labels get very difficult, but people that you trust, who you can speak with anytime when you want, head to lean on.
Yeah, I have very strong views on mentorship. Because I actually don't know if there's like a functioning mentorship. If you have the opportunity to go into a formal mentorship program, like your university, if there's any university students here, if your university offers one, there's a tech company called 10,000 Coffees that's trying to disrupt that industry. If you work for a bank, a lot of banks, or if you work for like a bigger institution, it's taking advantage of those formal mentorship programs because they at least give you some kind of structure of like, somebody's committed their time, that they're going to show up, and like you can kind of practice that like question asking. I think that there's very few people actually get mentorship, and mentorship comes from like highly trusted folks that also are looking for something from that relationship from you. So whether it's like they're invested in your career because they want to see you grow and they know that eventually like it's going to give them something back. Mentorship is a two-way road, and those like really informal, when somebody says, "Oh yeah, my mentor," like relationships are trust-based relationships. My current mentors at this stage of my life are my peers. They are my network of like highly trusted 5 to 6 women in the sector, because it's mentorship has to be relevant, it has to be timely, and it has to be from somebody who's really knowledgeable about things. And so it's actually like a peer mentorship group. We, it serves as a whisper network as well. Like, hey, like look out for this thing here. This person is like maybe not the great to do business with. But also, hey, like I need advice on this. Like we are needing to move the needle on this like specific deal. It's not happening. How would you approach this? Or hey, we have a meeting with like a minister in the government. This is the questions we're going to ask. Can you just review them for me? Like that is the type of mentorship and feedback loop that I need in this point right now. And then there's also other different opportunities to get those service, like, to get that support. From like formal services, right? Like I hired, as part of my professional development budget, in my previous organization, I hired a life coach. And it was literally just a life coach that taught me how to not frown on Zoom calls so that my team could ask me questions without feeling intimidating, right? It was like such a minor thing. She's like, when you're in a Zoom call, you scrunch. I'm like, yeah, because I can't see the font. And she's like, just go get new prescription glasses and maybe people won't think that you're like asking. I was like, oh yeah, right. And so like, I hired somebody and paid them to give me feedback and a specific thing. And I think that's part of investing in yourself as a woman. I don't think people get on panels or stages comfortably out of nowhere. Like I didn't get here without support. I had a speaking coach. Her name is Jordan at Speechwell, who worked specifically on government sector speeches where we have to use a lot of jargon. And so like that was a huge support too in my own kind of advisory. And so really looking at like who do I need who's an expert? Like when do I need actual mentorship and like coaching, advisory? And then what is, how am I defining mentorship for myself? And that just means like I need a feedback loop. And a peer mentorship is what's worked for me.
That's really.
Yeah, the point of feedback loop is very, very important. Like, networking and mentorship is not like you met someone, you had a great conversation. You have to build on a relationship. So that intentionality in what is it that you're asking for, and getting back to that person and having a feedback loop on building on a relationship is the key to everything. So when people say go out there and network, it's not great to have 10,000 people on your LinkedIn. It's probably, what you want is 10 people who you can ask when you're stuck. And finding those 10 people is the hard part.
Yeah, that's really important. I think when I first started my legal career and my networking career, I was really trying to make everything work. I thought everyone should be my mentor, and I really try to make every single mentorship relationship work. And I learned over the years, and that's not true. Some people you're just not going to connect with. You have to be genuine, like you said. And over time, that really helped. I established a true relationship that I will build and I can turn to and will actually respond to me when I message, right? So I think we're getting close to the Q&A, but my final question to each, and maybe we'll start for Tika just to make our way back here, is what is your one advice you would give to the next generation of entrepreneurs coming in to watch out for, perhaps, or what you really wish someone had told you when you were 19?
Well, I wish people said a lot of things.
One thing.
But really, my one piece of advice, and I still hold myself true to that to this date as well. And when I hire people, I go by three things. Always be curious. Question everything. First principle thinking. Don't just lean on judgments. Ask questions. Make sure you understand something. Don't assume that the other person knows what they're saying. People usually don't know what they're doing. The second one is don't make any assumptions. And, it all feeds into one another, these three rules. Don't make any assumptions. So try to validate every single thing, why you're doing what you're doing, and ask. Peel those layers of onion to have more and more clarity. And the third thing is very important at today's time. Don't take anything personally. When people say something, we take it personal, and you're like, oh, probably it's telling about us. No, it's all a situation that you're in. So try not to take things personally and have that emotional regulation. It's a very, very important thing for women because, women tend to be more emotional about situations, about relationships, and they take everything personally. So, that stands in the way sometimes. So these are the three rules that I literally tell everyone I hire, I work with, I mentor, I advise, and I still try to follow it myself.
I would buy a poster and put it on my wall. I just today told me don't take it personally to an email and proceeded to delete that email. The pad.
For me, would just be one thing. It's just ask. As a woman, sometimes you're so afraid to just ask. Like, you want that promotion? Ask for it. You want that contract? Go and ask for it. You want to build this contract with a B2B business or a local coffee shop? Just walk in and ask. And, you really like that guy and you want to ask him out. Just ask, right? Like, there's so much that you can just ask, but sometimes you are the only person that really limit yourself. So, yeah, get out of your own head and just ask. And the worst going to happen is they don't respond or they said no, but that's not the end of the war.
Pat's giving personal advice too.
I have one for women entrepreneurs who are first-time women entrepreneurs, if that's the question. For first-time women entrepreneurs, my advice would be to hop on a trend that is happening, that's going to get the attention of the right people, and try and build a business and just go for it. It's likely not going to work for you for the first time. And so, but by hopping on a trend, you're addressing something that has a spotlight on it. There's a lot of women trying to solve a lot of really complex issues that are not going to get the attention that they deserve. And the average Canadian founder is 44 years old with an MBA and engineering degree that has either worked for a company that's exited and has had enough capital to bootstrap their early stages of their company. So if you want to be a tech entrepreneur founder who's exited, it's really look at the patterns, follow the trends, try it and fail, and you're likely to get more funding and secure funding once you're a multi-time founder. It's just the way that it works. And it's really just knowing how to play the game. And if you fail at your first company, that's fine. If you fail at your second, that's fine. If you succeed at your third, then that's great. And so I think that's what a lot of men do. And you don't have to do the impact stuff. Impact is not just a woman's job. For a young woman who's either in tech or working in tech or wants a career in tech, I really loved Pat's advice. My framing would be ask from a place of curiosity. I think that often because of the hardships that women face, we might ask like, why am I not doing this? Or like, how can I do this? But it's like, how might I do this? Like, if I were to do this, how do you think I could do this better? It's just framing from a place of curiosity and approaching your career trajectory is, as like a curious question to discover. But that would be the two that I would say for those two kind of categories of people.
Well, on that note, I'm going to open it up to Q&As from the audience. So ask away. Do we have any questions? We have this block that we can kind of just throw around as a microphone. We have a question in the back.
Thank you. I'm volunteer with AC, and I just want to say how appreciated I'm here. I have no idea this can be so emotionally supportive for me, myself, and I feel like I found the courage. I found so many, I don't know, you guys understand where are we going through and where I'm heading to, and I feel so powerful after what you guys say, so I really want to say thank you. And I just got a stupid question, and I always want to ask people, what's your regret? Maybe in this journey, I'm more curious about what's your regret during your entrepreneur journeys. If you can do it differently, what would that be and why? Thank you.
I can go. Mine's really easy. I think about this every day. My biggest regret as a woman in Canada, early in my money making years was really not having enough financial literacy to make the right investments. Whether it was like really understanding where to put my money and like GICs or different things. I obviously coming from an immigrant family didn't have anyone that could do kind of any type of advisory, and I think just like really empowering myself to have the financial literacy to be able to make specific investment decisions. Obviously now being in this space too, like really wanting to understand how can I, with more access to capital, empower other women and invest in them, and that comes from like really basic financial literacy to then like be able to like understand like a term sheet and a cap table and like a bunch of things that when you look at it and you're not an accountant, you're like, what? But yeah, that would be my biggest regret, was not really empowering myself with that skill set from the time I was like 18 onwards. I could have a lot of money that I don't.
Was it for all of us? Okay. Well, I don't have any regrets. I am where I am because I did everything that I wanted to do. Probably that's a regret. I could have done better things. But really, I feel life is a function of the decisions that you make, and I take full ownership of the mistakes. I can just keep getting better at it. I don't want to think about the past and what happened, and think about the regrets possibly, but rather be more forward-looking and keep thinking about what I can do better next time. So, sorry.
Sorry for not having any regrets.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm like, how do you have no regrets? That's amazing. No, I wish I was more confident as a woman. I wish that I could have dreamed bigger and not just having my own limiting beliefs, right? Like, very basic thing. I was talking to V earlier. I was like, why can't I raise a bigger round? Like, why do I need?
You can still do it.
Yeah,
right?
I can still.
How do you count that as a regret? You do it now.
I wish. True. I wish I was a bit more confident and dream bigger and be okay to like dream bigger and not putting my own, I don't know, something self-doubt, right?
She's so young. She can totally do it now.
Yeah, I was going to say, V's the most mature member of this panel. Like no regrets.
Oh, that's... I think I have many regrets myself, so but I'm not going to go through my list. Do we have any questions, other questions? Oh, we have one here, Megan.
I will throw it. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for all your advice. Since you're all up there, I'm assuming it's because you desperately love seeing women succeed. So I want to know what does your vision for women succeeding look like?
I can take this one actually. So my vision is, walking the walk on women supporting other women. We all say that we want more equity, we want more women in the room, we want women on leadership, on boards, as investors, so on and so forth. But it's the women who are in power that are not doing enough to get other women a seat on the table. It's the competition that comes into play. And, people don't call it out. I am a very straightforward person and blunt enough to call that out. So I want to see that women supporting other women for real to happen, and not just, for the sake of it.
For me, it would be to remove the assumption and the stereotype of being a woman. Like so many times that I go to conferences and people thought I work in marketing or I was an intern. And then until I told them that I actually started a company and they got confused. They're like, what? The vision is to kind of remove that biases and assumption that people put on just maybe how you look. Yeah.
Obviously, we are super privileged to look at this from the Canadian context. So just like addressing it with like the Canadian context in the global north, I think for in like urban spaces, like I think that like it's just very important for me to get very niche and very specific, because there's just so much inequity in our country. When you look at like Indigenous women, when you look at women in rural communities. So when I'm talking about like what is my vision for professional women, so like women with post-secondary educations or like in the professional sphere in Canada in 2023, it's twofold, is that we do get closer to closing any type of gender pay wage gap, and really provide women with like the same pay. As a Latinx woman, I'm always like, well, I get paid 53 cents for the dollar that every man would get paid for, so it's like, are you going to adjust my salary to that? And then people always laugh, like in like interviews, and I'm like, no, this is a serious question, and like it's true. So I think that is my hope for women, but I do think I really agree that women in power need to support other women. It's like a really, really big part of that. And then the third is like equal parental benefits for entrepreneurs. I think that at a policy level, if we get really practical and talk about like, if you're a 50% owner in a company, you do not get access to unemployment insurance. If you are a business owner, you don't get access to unemployment insurance. And I think really thinking about women's maternal rights in Canada and what that could look like for us to really advance women would be really important at a direct policy level.
Great. Chair, do we have any other questions? We have one right there. Perfect.
Hi, this is Rupi here. So first of all, thank you so much for taking this opportunity to share your wisdom. It's really helpful to all of us. My question was about startups. So as you said that you have developed a lot of products. For a startup or for any product, we need money. How do you handle those investment relationships when you have to convince them to invest in your product, and we might don't know whether the product will work out or not, and to support that product, you really have to convince. And being a woman, that stigma also relates. They might not be so confident in investing to our system or the startup. So how do you handle those without going through a lot of conflicts and that mental pressure, I would say, or avoiding that issues? So yeah.
So the one-word answer is validation. Now, we are lucky that in 2024, tech has come to a level that you don't need to know how to write code to build a product, and you don't need a whole lot of money to build a product. You can build a scrappy MVP sketch on a napkin and go validate and run small experiments. Be creative enough to build evidence to have a show and tell story, and then go to a prospective investor and show the work that you've done and why you believe that your idea is going to work. So it may not work. That's okay. Nobody knows. You cannot control that outcome. But why do you think it's going to work? What is that experiment like? How did you validate it? That's the step one. Back in the day, now I know enough JavaScript to be dangerous. So back in the day, I didn't code. So I met my co-founder on Twitter. I just sold a vision. How about we build this? And how can we build the smallest possible outcome of that so that I have something to show and tell people, and not just use the power of stories and words and what is possible, what can be done. That's science fiction, right? So you have to get any idea to an MVP level. That's why the word MVP exists, on how you can validate and show proof of what you want to do. And in fact, Pat has done that before her platform. She must share her story.
Yeah, you definitely, you nailed it. Like, really, it's the validation. So a bit of my story, like, we had no tech. And my engineering colleagues who's sitting right there, probably a nod like, yeah, you had no tech. Is technically, I started the company with $20 WordPress plugin to have like a job board, and then we took that to sell to enterprise clients and say, hey, you can post jobs and you can pay me $500 a month. And just being able to piece things together, like you can do so much with just Excel sheets and network effect and job board and plugins, but one thing that I wanted to call out is around like fundraising and capital management is, I was technically the only person on the team that came on full time, and I had no team then when I had to go raise my first round of funding. And the reason why I left my full-time job to do that was because I needed to show commitment that, hey, I'm actually willing to take this risk and I'm actually committed to make this a full business. If I had been in a job and asking someone for funding to invest in me, then they wouldn't, because I wasn't even invested in myself, right? So you have to take a little bit of the risk, but be calculative about it.
I think I would iterate that again, the only people that get money to bring their ideas to life are either in the US and California and they know millionaires, or like they're multi-time founders that have proven the ability to do this. If you are not either one of those categories, then it's really quite inexpensive to build something unless you're building hardware. What's expensive is your time, right? So like when you're saying I need to get paid to do this idea, just like anyone feels like they deserve to get paid to do anything, like that is just, it's not realistic, and you actually don't. And I think that that's what investors value is like, are you willing to commit your time and your own, like, which would be equal to your personal capital to building this? What's expensive is like taking that idea to market, right? Commercialization, building a team, scaling it, like building like the actual like infrastructure. Because there's so many things that you can build on top of today that you can go through that like iterative process, those MVPs, right? Those like minimum viable products to take to market. I think if you're a more, once you get to that stage, in Canada, we also have an incredible publicly supported ecosystem like accelerators and incubators and regional hubs that you can tap into to get those ideas validated, and that's why they exist, right? It's government funding that's been allocated to our innovation economy so that like people can go in and test those ideas. And if you're a bit more advanced, I would say like a woman who's like built a product, has either come out of like with IP that's come out of a program and is still having trouble fundraising. One of the things that we coach our founders, like our members at Upside On, is actually how to turn the questions around. It's proven that women get asked like risk mitigation questions instead of future visioning questions. And so when you get asked a certain question from a funder or a VC, it's how to actually answer the question in a visioning way, right? So That has been a huge shift, and there's like a ton of, the BDC has done studies on this, and that's why we have like specific funds that are dedicated to women's seed to, to like commercialization buckets in Canada. But yeah, if not, like there's so many opportunities in Canada to tap into like government subsidized programs, and that I think like you have to show that you've basically ran out of options. If you're asking for funding, it's because you've ran out of options and you don't have like a customer base yet. But nobody is going to pay you for ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen. What matters is like if you can bring it to life, and that goes for both a startup and if you are at a company.
Thank you so much.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for me to thank you, everyone, Pratika, Pat, Juanita, for having this conversation for me. It was really exciting, and I am really happy to learn about all your stories. Thank you again for making time out to come out and sit with us and talk with us. Hope you stay afterwards and network with us a little bit. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.